Okay, we went to the hardware store and we are working on, this is how you pronounce it. First of all, it's spelled Applique, and it's pronounced as
Applique.
Applique. You can see the portion where it says pronunciation Applique.
Applique.
So anyway, so we're working on the applique off of the back of the Escalade, and I know that one of the things that been working on this thing. I went to the hardware store, picked up some different hardware, and show you what tried and what I'm trying. This is the original gasket that came off of the original bolt, their bolt that's in there, and you know, their nut. Anyway, it sits right in between the paint and the bolt that you pull out from the backside of the off the backside of the liftgate. But anyway, so as we talked about before, those are all broken out, and so I ended up stopping at one hardware store. They had a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. They have this thing. This is a U nut. You can kind of see the shape, shaped like a U. And then on the top there, it actually has that's a 6mm bolt nut thread there. And so essentially it will work just like any type of normal thing that you would want to go about threading. So for instance, it allow it to thread that bolt that we have there through that hole. The problem that I had when I tried to go to do this was that, let me get over here, that portion stuck out too far, and keeping in mind that the smooth surface of this is supposed to, this portion is supposed to go flush with the paint on the back side of the Escalade there. And keep in mind it is covered and stuff like that because of the applique covers it up, but nonetheless this is the meeting surface that, you know, meets up with the back of the liftgate. And so with that sticking out as far as it would, there was two problems. One, the roundness of that on the top there is actually too big, and it will not go through the default hole slots in the back of the Escalade. And I know some people are probably thinking, well, you could just shave down the sides, or you know, maybe they drill the hole bigger on the back of the liftgate. I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I went away from that setup because of that problem. And then the other type of fastener, kind of like a combination of a what do they call these things? It's like a quick nut, you know. So it's more of a quick nut, but it does have like a little U on there also. You notice that little shot of the other view. So one of those is facing down, the other one's facing up. But so the hole is big enough to allow the bolt to go through, and meaning that's the default 8mm bolt that's in the center there. And you know, this is 10mm head as far as the size of that nut there, but the bolt is actually 6mm. And so it does allow that to go through, and what I did is I ended up basically bending the lower portion of that, and then after I did that, I went ahead and put the bolt through, and then bent the extra little portion of that. Actually, this is more of a J style quick nut is what that is. There you go. It's a J style quick nut. So I was going to bend that lower portion back up beneath the nut. And so that's what we have here, sitting here. I'll go ahead and pull this out. Okay, kind of show you the idea here. So we set this down. And so what we have there is, like I said, I ended up bending the thing, getting the nut, and then the lower portion of that simply hooks on the bottom portion of that. So on the underside, it grabs that. So, you know, that was the thought as far as using that technique. I guess I'll say this right here. If the method that I'm moving to doesn't work, I'll go back to this, but I figure at least I'll show you so I can kind of show you what didn't work and what did work. One problem with this, though, that I did notice was that even after I've been this, if you notice, this kind of sticks up here, and you kind of have these sharp edges. And keeping in mind that, again, you know, this is supposed to be nice and flush there, that those metal pieces will kind of stick up. Now, with the potential rubber washer, such as that one, might be able to avoid allowing that to happen. But so I guess I'll say this: if the thing I'm about to show you does not work, then I will probably go back to that design setup, because obviously the concept and the thought is to give it the support to help it stay connected to the actual applique. And so that's what the thought process is behind that. Now, moving on. So today I went to Home Depot, anyway, technically last night, and I got these different things. You can see that is a number 6, 32 by 1 inch. The bolt measurement is close to 1 inch, so it should have the same depth, and that's one thing. And then this right here is a quick nut, and so you could see, actually, sorry, speed nut, quick nut. Okay, so that's a number 8 flat type plain steel speed nut, quantity of 2. All right. So this I ended up getting at that other hardware store where I picked up all of those things right there. It's kind of like a I wouldn't say a washer. It's similar to speed nut, but it doesn't have threads in the center there. So kind of a square hole. I found it in one of the same drawers. I wouldn't be able to tell you what it's necessarily called. Hillman Fastener came up when I was looking up some of the different part numbers that I had written up there. But anyway, I don't think they're going to do all that much good because I don't recall what those were named. But I'll show you where that comes into play. The next thing is a rubber washer, and this is just for the mating surface for where it touches on the liftgate. This is a ever-built neoprene washer. So 3/16 inch by 1 1/4 in diameter. And so I'll show you kind of how that looks on there. So yeah, there you go. Next thing, this will be something that will be on the inside. This is going to go up under the actual fastening nut that gets screwed in from the inside of the vehicle. And so it's just a washer, but it has, there you go, like a rubber gasket on the opposite side. So again, trying to keep scratching paint and stuff. And so that is a bonded sealing washer, number 10, galvanized. All right. And the last thing is a locking nut. And so this is a ever-built Keps lock nuts. And number 6, 32, of course, zinc plated. So when you're working on trying to repair these, one thing you might want to consider doing is taking your number 8 speed nut or quick nut and basically your thing where you, let's try to get this, place it in there, and move it back and forth so that you can see what kind of room you have, like, and then how much might be missing. And I'm trying to get this in the light for you, so sorry about that. Anyway, but yeah, what you're really trying to figure out as you move it back and forth is how much is missing. So, like, if I notice here on the edge, it's almost as if that whole part's been ripped out. And so, if you notice that, maybe we can see that. That whole, it's not hanging over enough, I guess. It's not hanging over enough. And so, essentially the way these all go together is that, take this, and I'll probably be able to hold this and do this at the same time, but that goes on there. This goes on top of that one, and that, after you slide this in place, then anyway, you put that on, and then you pop through the hole. So I'll show you what this looks like here. So we got the washer, okay, and I screwed this in here, and I'll show you real quick, just so you can see kind of how this fits in these holes. So again, this is the speed, what do they call that again? Speed nut, a quick nut. But anyway, trying to record this at the same time. So, oops, missed the hole. Oops, that's okay. Anyway, so you can see that that actually fits in there pretty well, and not only that, but there's a little bit of play, so that's nice. The other one is just about the same. Don't necessarily need to show you that, but so anyway, I will attempt to pull out the one that's in here, because once I put these two speed nuts and front slash, like washers, whatever, together on top of that, they created a really snug fit. So you can kind of see that sticking up there, and that actually is even recessed beneath the surface of the plastic. It's pretty firm, and it doesn't seem to be twisting. I'm just trying to turn it, which that was one of my concerns, because I was kind of concerned about how much I'd be able to tighten up, the nut onto this bolt. But based on the way this is snugged in here, I think it'll be fine. I will attempt to pull this out. I don't think I'm going to have success, because I pushed it in with a flathead screwdriver, because once I started pushing it in, it seemed like it started snugging up, but it was sliding in, so I just, with a flathead screwdriver, push it in that way. So I'll try to pull this out, see if I can, or not. Okay, it's coming out. Praise God. All right, here we go. So I'm going to lay this down. So you can see, put that on the inside of the vehicle, and this is obviously just to emulate the diameter of the nut. Take that off. And so I'll lay those next to one another. And so I like to believe you understand what I'm attempting to achieve there. So I'm just trying to get that same diameter. And then just to fasten it down, have the locking style nut on there. Okay, so this particular tear out is a little bit too much, and so I'm going to have to attempt to try something different because this is not binding like that one, which, very, secure. So anyway, I'm going to devise a different method, try some of these pieces maybe in order to get it to hold, because it's going to have to grab it from the back, the under portion I was talking about before. So yeah, that portion needs to grab it. So okay, so this particular mount was really destroyed, really bad. So bad that that normal setup that's up under here wouldn't grab over here. There was essentially nothing. So essentially I ended up basically having to use one of the U nuts in order to get it to really grab, but it takes more than just simply that. I took the normal U nut and I basically had to grind down both sides to make it to where this would be able to slide in the slot. And it's basically the same for all of them. You'd have to grind it down because it's just a little bit on that top edge, it's just a little bit too fat. And see, the bottom edge doesn't matter. And when I say the bottom edge, meaning the side that actually has the nut on there, that one doesn't make that much of a difference because that goes on the underside, and there's enough clearance to allow it to be able to get beneath the bottom side of these. And so anyway, so nonetheless, like I said, you have to grind off just a little bit of that on both sides, left and right. Then at that point, that will permit that to be able to slide like in there, and in this case over here. And then so once you get that ground down, get that piece ground down, then you take a flathead screwdriver as such, and you need to put it in there sideways. Well, I should say, this is the way I did it. If you put too much force in this, it will break, just so you know that. But anyway, you take the flathead screwdriver and then you twist it in order to, like that. And when you do that, it'll usually lift that up, creating a big enough space to then in turn take this and this. You can put that on there. Let's see if I can get that done with one hand or not. Okay. Alright, I think it's, let me get that on there. Okay. Anyway, so you get that in there. And then once it's opened up, you need to make sure that that goes to the wider opening. So the nut portion aims down, this gets slid up through that opening, and then essentially it's going to end up being in there like that once it's finished. Okay, I'm filming this because I've done some thinking after getting the other thing reassembled with the smaller number 6-32 course standard size bolt front slash screw that was being used. And the thing that I was recognizing is that I did have to end up putting in one of these setups right here. And the thing I definitely recognize is that without question, this has the best clamping force of all the different arrangements that I had installed in the applique. And so I was going to show you that with this, what they call a U-nut. I'm trying to keep this out of the shade, so sorry about that, out of the shadow of the tablet. But these U-nuts, they have a real good clamp. And not only that, but they also fit over the standard bolt that comes with the applique. And so one thing that you have to just remember to do is that you have to let's see. You have to grind down the edges, though. That's the challenge right there. Is you have to grind the edge. I'm trying to use the screwdriver. Grind that edge right there, and the same on the opposite side. So both of those have to be ground in order to be able to allow the width of that to be able to slide into the applique slot. If you do not grind down, I suppose you can try to jam it in there. You know, I don't know if it's possible to break it or whatever, but anyway, in short, this stock size, which keeping in mind that nut size on there is a 6 millimeter thread, so the nut that is there is for a 6 millimeter, and so if you try to, you know, take this default size and get this to push into that existing slot, you're not going to have success. However, if you do grind it down, you know, on the left and right edges there, it does slide into the default slot that is basically the same width as the head that's on that bolt that they have, that's part of the applique. And so, so that's the first part. The second part is getting that bolt into this U-nut. And so I'm going to stop this real quick because it is kind of complicated to do, but let me see if I can try to show you. What you have to end up doing, okay, you have to get the screwdriver in there. This is just a flat head, you know. But anyway, get the screwdriver in there. And what I was able to do is I just kept pushing it through. I'm trying to show you. Kept pushing it through, and essentially went, get this portion, get this U-nut up onto this portion. The gap is big enough that once you do that, you can then take the bolt and then push it up through there at an angle. So I can't do it and record it at the same time, but I will show you what the result looks like. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about right there, as far as getting the screwdriver pushed up in there. I might suggest, because this is metal, these sharp edges, you know, wear some gloves of some sort in order to keep yourself from getting cut while you're trying to do this. But anyway, this now should have to slide in the slot and even get over the edge there. I might have to do a little bit more, but I've done this more than once now and then had success as far as once you get the back end of that clamp opened up enough of the U-nut, it then allows you to be able to slide that in there and pop that in there. So next step. Okay. I just barely had to touch the back end of the bolt and was able to go in. And so then once you have it in this setup, you can go ahead and pull the screwdriver out. Probably have to do two hands. Anyway, yeah. Let me go and stop this again. Okay. So once you pull the screwdriver back out, now what's going on here is you have the U-nut set up in a way where two things happen. One, the top portion of that will actually slide into the slot. Let me try changing hands. Okay. Where the top portion, top portion of that will slide into the slot on the applique. Set this back down on the ground, on the counter. What a hassle as far as the shadows from the tablet, etc. so forth. But anyway, so that top portion will now slide into the slot on the applique. Mind you, after you grind it down, really, you focus on grinding that side on both sides, this side and the other side. But anyway, so that will slide in there with the bolt head, and then this portion right there, that metal edge and the nut actually go beneath the bottom of the mounting hole, and there's enough room down there. I've verified that because, like I said, I was able to get one in there in the setup we did. But anyway, I guess the thing I'm really emphasizing is that this setup seems like it actually will work with the default bolt. The biggest challenge was getting the default bolt. Let me spin this to go into that assembly, and so that was the challenge. So yeah, might make that recommendation as far as to go about doing it that way. I do know that it works also with the other thing, but you have to do some additional stuff. So I don't think I'm going to take it out and put it back in, but it is something that I believe works out, like I said, but you do have to do the grinding. So yeah, as you can look and see what we got going on. The reason why you have to use one of the quick nuts or the speed nuts is because that hole is too big in relation to that particular bolt. I'm going to call it a bolt. You can call it a screw if you want to, but anyway, we're using it as a bolt. Just figured I'd show you that. It's not the simplest thing as far as to do those ones that are totally destroyed, but it definitely does work, and it's in there secure. So anyway, I'm going to attempt to do the other two using the normal setup, meaning what's been done here, and then if for some reason if I have another one that's been destroyed too much, which I don't believe I do, then I'll revert to this technique. Okay, so working on this applique, and I'll just tell you that of the different type of fasteners I put in here, and I'll say this right here, as long as you got meat on the side there, meaning like there's enough lip for this piece right here, right there to tuck into, to be able to make it all the way over and get caught up in there. As long as that has room to be able to hook that back there, this by far was not only the quickest, the easiest, and it's very secure. So I'll tell you what it was. So it's a combination of the J-style speed nut from /quick nut, and then in addition, it's also, I'm going to lay it down flat, it's a secondary speed nut also, which basically just gets tucked up in there, and then after that's been done, and take the bolt or screw, I'm referring to it as a bolt because of the way it's being used, and then this is going to be tucked up in here, so this will go through that one, and then it'll go through that one. So essentially, it'll slide through both of them. Just keep in mind, this is a number 8. This is a number 6. And so this actually passes through. It doesn't have to use the threads, which is actually good for you because it just makes it easier for it to be able to make it through. Otherwise, you'd have to fight to get it through. But anyway, so that, do that. And then the last piece is to take the screwdriver in order to put in that thing so you can open it up so you can slide it on. I end up taking the flathead screwdriver, put it in right there, and just rotate it to the right. And what will happen is it'll take the lower portion of that and it'll put it down, therefore allowing you to slide that on there, and then when you let it go, it grabs the bottom. So now we have the speed nut in there along with the J-style speed nut. So essentially it's almost like a double layer of speed nuts. Now the main reason to do this is just to make it to where it puts a little more down pressure towards the plastic piece, which in turn puts more pressure on the screw front slash bolt to keep it from turning, so when you go to fasten it, that it should be able to secure itself. So that's the main reason. So then the next thing is to take the screw or the bolt and slide that through the hole right there. So getting that started, should be able to press that through. As such. And then what usually is going to happen is that once it gets really close to almost being all the way up there, you will end up needing to use the screwdriver in order to, I'll try to show this to you, in order to get the J-style portion of that speed nut from up underneath the lip of the screw or the bolt. And so by popping the screwdriver in a little gap right there, you'll be able to, rotate, basically turn it, I'll say counterclockwise here, and then it should be able to pop down, and then it'll rest on the lip or the edge of the screw, and then you'll be able to put it in place. So I think I can show you that. I mean, as far as where to, I hope to God you guys understand this. Anyway, so yeah, you put it in there, and then so you'll turn like that while holding it, and anyway, it should do what it needs to do. So I will stop this for now, and hopefully I'm going to try to get this wrapped up and go line it up with the vehicle to verify it looks like it'll work. Okay, all right, so we got these 4 posts put in, and these are removable, so they're not like permanently locked in or anything like that. They even have a little bit of play, so they can be adjusted a little bit, but nonetheless, it was explained a little bit ago, these are probably the quickest, easiest, simplest setup right there. Very nice and snug and secure. Yeah, it's like, it feels good. That's in there snug because there's enough meat around the area of where the damage is at. That one had the most damage, so that required additional security that would not be able to be accomplished by using that. So I guess the thing I got to emphasize is that when you do the little test where, you take the little, where we're at, there we go. You take that and you put that in the slot, and you back and forth just to make sure, find out how much you have to work with, as far as, how bad the break is. If it's not too bad, without question, this is probably quickest, easiest, simplest, definitely fastest. Requires a very small amount of things, essentially 3 items. The J-style speed nut or quick nut, a additional quick nut, and a number 6 bolt front slash screw by 1 inch. Both of the speed nut front slash quick nuts are number 8. So that goes on very, very quickly, and with the screwdriver just helps pop it on there really easy. A little more extensive. That, like I said, I had to, that was that type of adapter. which this is a U-nut is what that is. And so the portion that sticks out like a nipple is aiming down in this arrangement. And so, and I explained that earlier, so we'll make sure that. And then this one right here was actually just a quick nut and one of these additional types of spacers, which is very similar to a quick nut, except for it has like a square opening, as you can see there. That's in a nice and secure. Like I said, this is probably the one that had the least amount of damage. And then back over here. So if Lord will, I'm going to go and try to go and line these up to make sure that they look like they're going to fit through the holes correctly. And then, Lord willing, I will then remove the other 3 that I did not take out, as far as, you know, the bolts and nuts that are in there. And then at that point, put this in place and install the new camera. So essentially we're ready for that. So I thank the Father in Jesus' name, and I hope this is going to be a blessing to anyone who is dealing with this. I do know that the educated grease monkey, I think that's his name, you know, glued his in, and other people, same thing, and even the people that I was trying to find asking for help as far as what to try to do as far as these connectors, they're saying the same thing. But my thought was that I didn't want to glue it in for a couple reasons. One, because it should be able to be, you know, removable, you know, as needed and stuff like that. So, and I'm hoping that this actually will serve very well. So that's it for now, and pick up with the next part. Okay, so anyway, all of them lined up except for one. It was this one I had to adjust it a little bit, so I was able to grab it and just pull it off to the side and get it to line up. But yeah, they lined up good. I was over at the dollar store the other day, and I was walking, and I saw these corn cushions. And originally I was going to take some felt and those little small ones, you know, that you put on different pieces, and I was going to get a hole punch and punch out a hole. But anyway, so I saw these, and I was like, hey, they already have a hole in them. So the original gaskets are real small like this. Actually, I should say they're a lot smaller, essentially only big enough to go over the bolt hole size. And I went ahead and put on these corn cushions, sticky side against the plastic and not the paint. And so got those mounted on there as such. This is sideways. So anyway, just need to put the last one on there. Yeah, be careful, because this thing is just basically balancing, and you don't want it to fall. So anyway, well, I'm going to put this back on again, retighten it down. Okay, so anyway, clean this off. The gap that exists, it's not terrible. I think it's like one of those things where maybe this had got partially damaged when it got knocked off or whatever, but anyway, nonetheless, I'm going to get this all put back together and wrapped up.